If we've never met before, I'd like to have a chance to do that. But yeah, we're very strong sponsors of Minnesota Rural Water Association. We're Ruby sponsors. We're very proud to be associated with them. They do a great job in providing information for you guys, training for you, and support. So essentially today what we're going to talk about is AMR, AMI. We're going to talk about all the different types of technologies that are out there. And I want this to be very open. We want to answer questions as we go along. I thought I'd run through things first. All right. Well, one of the companies that we represent, we're a manufacturer's representative. We believe we represent premium lines in the marketplace. But we understand that in the end, the only thing that matters is you getting served. Everybody's got budgets to run. Nobody likes to be sold. People buy what they need, when they need, for trusted solutions. So we get that part of things. Been around for quite a while. Informational data technologies, though, however, is relatively new on the horizon for this marketplace. So I want to introduce them to you and tell you a little bit about what they have, as well as talk about AMR in general. The overview of this presentation is to talk a little bit about informational data technologies. We're going to talk about automatic meter reading. We'll get into the next generation, and then have a Q&A at the end. I've got some pictures to show you as well. And if we have time, run you out and show you some live production information. I do speak quickly. With Gus up to 450 words a minute. Sometimes sustained Gus. So if you need me to slow down, let me know. I'm trying to get through as much information as I possibly can in a short period of time. I'm going to need somebody to watch the clock for me. Thank you, Mike. And just kind of let me know what time I'm at on a relatively regular basis. Because he told me, I give it the 5 minutes at the end, he starts with a shot collar. So he turned it up for me. So, all right. How many people in here have AMR? Okay. AMR has been around for quite a while. It's becoming the accepted standard in the marketplace. And it's because it does a lot of things for people. There's technologies that have been out for quite a while, and as time's gone on, it's gone from the self-read to the tap read to the drive-bys to the fixed networks to the piggyback networks, and now to satellite as an additional option. All of them have a place and a fit. Obviously the technology works, people are using it. Okay? The reason they use it is to reduce their operational costs, improve their data accuracy. Now why does that matter? Well, it's nice to know how much you've made, how much you've sold, so you know how much you're losing. If you know how much you're losing, you can try to mitigate that loss and deal with that in your system. Does anybody have an idea of what the average loss for a system is in the state of Minnesota? 20%. 20%? Any other comments? Ideas of what the loss is? Just guess.
Yeah, wow.
It's actually between 20 and 25% for the state of Minnesota. Okay, that came from the Utility Association. A little bit surprised by that myself, to be honest. But I think a lot of times it might be just not knowing how much you're losing. You can improve your cash flow budgeting by knowing what you have at the end of the month to get that out for billing. Improve your customer service, public relations. And I'm going to use some examples of cases that I'm sure you all have stories that you could share. We already talked about data on production and sales. Now the hands went up, how many have drive-bys or taps? Okay? This technology's been around for a while. It works. You know, basically what you have to have, and I'm not going to be able to cover every manufacturer's system, but there's a lot of similarities. What you do is, no matter what type of AMR, AMI you use, you have to have smart heads on your meters. Does that make sense? You have something that takes that reading and turns it into an electronic signal that you can transmit. Whether it's to read with a wand, whether it's to drive by and pick up with a computer, to run through a tower, to run to a satellite, to hook to an electric meter to run back, you still have to take that water signal and change it to an electronic signal to be able to feed. Does that make sense? Now, when you get that smart head, one of the important things about it is to know and pay attention to what resolution you're going to use. Granularity, if you will. If you're reading every 1,000 gallons, that might be great for billing, but it may not be nearly as good for looking for leaks. So you might be thinking hundreds of gallons, tens of gallons, or smaller. I mean, a lot of the systems, the meters read down in the tenths, right? I wish you could see where I'm at right now. You ever come over to the hill and see about 4 or 5 deer in the headlights? I know you just had lunch. I won't be too long. I was going to start out with a joke, but I was afraid people would leave. We're just, I want you to relax and have a good time. I'm not here to pontificate at you. I'm not here to do anything other than to educate and share new technology. Does that make sense? Okay. So basically what you have here is you've got these smart heads at each house with the meters, and they project a signal. You've got a vehicle, generally with either a case or a computer or a special reading device that has specialized software on it. There's an antenna either on the vehicle or with the device, and you drive within a certain range of the meters, and it reads them. I talked to one fellow in a small town. He said, I got a small, flat, dense area. I could read everything in 15 minutes. It's a really good application for them. It works really well, But the other technologies have come up for other reasons, that for those that are more spread out, those that have topographical challenges. How do you deal with those? Some of the challenges with this is, depending on the amount of ground you have to cover, well, you need specialized computer, specialized software. You pay for the firmware upgrades. You got to pay for gas and people to drive around and gather it, download it. Right? But it does help you in other ways. So the question is, you have to always bet like everything that you do. You're balancing cost versus benefit. Where's the return on investment? Can I justify this for the bottom line of where I'm working? Fixed radio. Anybody here got fixed radio set up? Okay. Again, like any other AMR system, you still have to have smart heads on your meters. Does that make sense? And there's a couple different types of technologies for that. I won't get into that today, but it's really interesting stuff. They're not all the same. Some actually use signals that are generated by the actual flow that is directly proportional. Some are more flow-based. There's different types of technology. I learned all this over the last couple of years. It's been fascinating. So if you look at this, you have all these smart meter heads. They send their signal up to a centralized collection point. And that centralized collection point could be a tower that's built onto the ground somewhere. It could be a tower affixed to the top of a water tower. With your system, are you using both towers and water towers to pull it all together?
You just need our water.
You just need a water tower. Okay, see, that's perfect. I was talking to a gentleman who's got a 40 by 40 system. He's got 3 water towers strategically placed, and he's able to pick up his whole town with that. So a system like that works very well. If you can put it on one tower and pick everything up. That's what this kind of a system is meant for. What you do here is you gather all this up, and then it's sent back to a central point. Normally you have a place where it's collected, it's sent back to a main office. You have a computer, you have resident software. Is that what you have? Okay, and then you have that data to report. Now those systems, how often does yours report?
Each meter?
Yeah, how often do you gather the data?
Well, I'll call in 6 times a day, and then
Right.
we read them every morning.
Sure. So that was, if you didn't hear that, it was 6 times a day, and they check it every morning. When you have a system like this, and you own the infrastructure, and have everything in front of you, if you don't have a really spread out system, you can afford the infrastructure, you get a lot of reporting. Okay? One of the challenges for something like this is, do you have all the towers in place to gather up the signals, to bring it together? Do you have places where you're drop low and you have to have extra towers or repeaters? Do you need to get easements for land to put them up? Can you leverage your own elevated towers? And those are all things that tie into the infrastructure cost of something like this. Does that make sense? Plus the maintenance of infrastructure. Anybody here have an electrical piggyback system? Have you heard of it before? Anybody heard of it before? Oh. All right. Got somebody in the meter business up here. Of course he's heard of it before. But basically the way that these work is the electrical companies do transmission of their data across the lines on what they call carriers. They have things that will adapt and take your smart signal to their meter so it can ride along the electric wire for it to be gathered into one place. Normally it's at a substation, and they set it up through what's called a turbo in a lot of cases. I have to generalize to not have to cover everybody's system. Does that make sense? But when it goes to a 12, this is a device that costs thousands of dollars, it takes all this information and it sends it to satellite. The advantage is you get to use their built-in infrastructure. The disadvantage is that you have to have power available for where you are, and you also are relying on somebody else's system. And I know from being years in this industry how self-reliant people like to be. I wasn't surprised to not see a lot of hands in the room. Okay? Any questions so far?
Is that turtle system, you know, that they used to call it, or still do call it, is that still fairly slow though, or is that improving?
It is still fairly slow in the way that it works, and generally what they like to do. It's a good question. The question is still fairly slow, and the answer to the question is yes. It's because they're trying to maximize the data transfer, and the way that they do it to keep their costs to satellite down. That's part of the reason. They've got a lot of data going up through there, obviously not just your meter data, but all the electrical data that they're pulling and storing to bring up. And so I would say yes, it's still relatively slow. Technology's gotten a little bit better for them, but what they generally do is they'll take that information and make it available to you as a .dat file that you can pull down and look at through maybe a software program. Okay? You can still get an awful lot of data that way. Okay? Obviously, you know I was going to talk about ATC next. Okay? This device is not meant to solve every situation, but it has something different that the other items in the industry don't have. Okay? First of all, let me back up just a little bit. I want to tell you a little bit of history about how this came to be and what problem was created to solve. About 4 years ago, I was approached by a rural water manager who's been in the business 35 years. He's retired since. Okay. And he came up to me at one of the shows. It was in the Dakotas. And he said, you need to sit down, shut up, and listen. Oh, my mouth was full, so it worked. And he sat down and he just poured his heart out. He said, I'm really frustrated. He said, I've got topographical challenges, I have density issues, and I can't really get around to all of my stuff. I don't have 100% solution for anything. I've got part of my system I can do by drive-by. I've got part of my system I can cover with fixed. But I've got parts of my system that don't have power at all. They're in pastures. They're in topographically challenged areas by the rivers. I want something that can do everything for me. He said, so what are you looking for? I'd like somebody to come up with a satellite-based solution that'll get everything. I said, okay, what do you have for meters? Well, then he started to name them off. Because he had meters from a company going back that's now been bought by another company. Then he had meters from the next company, which was the neatest generation at the time. Then he did another expansion, and there was newer technology. And I said, okay, what's prevented you from bringing those all into one family? And he said, I'm still using self-read. It doesn't make sense to spend the money to do that. I would like something that works with all of them. I thought that was a tall order. I was attending that show, of course, for Dakota Pump Control. I went back to the office and I talked to the owner of the company, and we started scratching our chins to try to find out if this was a problem that a lot of people had. Or was this unique? Okay. Come to find out, there are a lot of people looking for options that can do 100% read. So what we did is we then started a 1.5 years worth due diligence. We interviewed over 80 different systems and engineering firms to basically say, what do you want? We were really surprised. People were looking at us saying, you're actually asking before you design something? That was kind of an interesting feedback. So anyhow, this is the device that came out of that. This is actually the device. I'll pass this around. I had somebody stop by yesterday, and they loosened the bracket just enough to move it, but not take it out, and they were working it up and down, so they scratched her up pretty good. She was real shiny and pretty. But anyhow, that's okay. I'm going to pass this around after I explain it to you, but I want to talk a little bit about it first. What we ended up doing was taking a list of things that they wanted to have done. And then we built them into the unit. I'm going to run through that a little bit. But I want to first of all talk a little bit, I'm going to run through the rest of this PowerPoint show so that I can get this down and start talking exactly about what this device is. Is that fair? Okay. You figure I'm going to go on even if you don't answer me, don't you? Okay. All right, well, the one thing about this, and I'm going to start out with this, it's the only 100% solution in the marketplace, period. Doesn't matter for density, it doesn't matter for topography. We've got these running out in Teddy Roosevelt up in Medora, the Badlands of the north. We've got them in the Badlands of the south. We've got these installed where there's not even AM radio, and they work. They're reporting. They've been out in the field for a couple of years already. As a matter of fact, the people that were the first proof of concept were the people that first bought for their entire systems. And I'll share a little bit of that as we go. And I'm going to show you some of their feedback via their own emails, because I think that's a lot more valuable to some guys standing up here telling you a story. And he also said, his name and number is on there if you guys want to scratch it down once it comes, once I explain who he is, because he's open to phone calls. Anyhow, the important thing about this device, it doesn't need any infrastructure. This is it. This is the whole thing. This right now works with numerous manufacturers and models, multiple models of Badger, Census, Percy. It connects in through the bottom here, identifies the type, pulls the serial number and the daily reading, and sends it up through satellite. Comes back down on a cloud-based, web-hosted application. So it could be, well, you've got your passwords, you control it, who has access at what level, daily. So it's there daily. We looked at doing it less, and it turned out to not be a water management system. We looked at doing it more, and it became cost prohibitive. We fought the satellite folks for over 6.5 months trying to help them understand how this industry works. They started out like cell phone people and satellite people do. Well, the more you use, the cheaper it gets. So that's not going to work here. We need the lowest price, we need to guarantee it for 10 years. So we got them to a spot where it's, for daily readings on a unit like this, it's $5 a month. Guaranteed for 10 years. We thought that was pretty good. You can't get a cell phone plan like that. Okay? So anyhow, this is it for infrastructure. That's all there is. There's no maintenance, there's no wires, there's no towers, there's no wind. By the way, the head on this device can operate for 2 inches of ice or 18 inches of snow. How can I say that? Well, the satellite company that created this head has 400,000 of these out in the field. And they were used for North Atlantic and North Pacific ocean crossings. They run them through a couple inches of ice and 18 inches of snow. So they work. But what we did is we worked with them to take things out of here that were not necessary, that would draw power, so we could guarantee the battery that's in this, and it's battery power, for a daily reading for 10 years guaranteed non-graduated scale. Testing has already taken it through that time. We put it in a dry ice bath at minus 56 and ran another few years out of it. It's pretty hard to live under. Okay? Because it has to be, and I'm going to show you some fun pictures in a little bit. But this is now an IDT part number. This is patent pending. It's been filed. We expect to have some excellent feedback here relatively shortly. So, all right. So you don't need any additional infrastructure, no additional land, no tower vehicle line of sight. One of the things you have to worry about with all the other systems, whether you're driving by for line of sight, or whether you have to have a tower erected, is you have distance to worry about and topography to worry about. Is that right? You don't need that for this. Okay? No fuel usage, no base station, reduced truck maintenance. You can actually have people on the team. And I had somebody tell me once, hey, are you trying to take my job? I read meters. I said, no, not really. Most everybody I've talked to has said, the people that I have doing that, I've done other work I'd like to have them doing to help the system. But I have to make sure the finances for the system are there. So if that gets taken care of, I can now have them doing more important work. And I thought that was an interesting comment. Again, what I'm telling you is stuff that I've collected from people. None of this is original to me. I don't run a system. I don't do what you do every day. I know that. I know a lot of you, but I don't know what you go through every day. So what I'm telling you can't come from me. It has to come from people that I've interviewed. Does that make sense? Because there's no value in me saying it. And I accept that. Okay? So as you look at this, you can get to really remote locations. We have a lot of these in pasture taps that are through 2 or 3 cattle gates to get out to livestock. They've got flow systems out there putting water to the animals. I'm going to show you one where they found a 12,000 gallon per day leak using this system. By the way, the rancher was really happy about that. And the system was actually happy for the PR side. Works with electronic remote readers. Have a system that actually has census meters installed, and they have Hersey remotes on them. And they said, well, we would like to use those remotes still, but in some cases we may take them out. This doesn't care. Put the remote in, it reads, take the remote out, it reads. You don't have to change anything about this, it automatically knows. Okay? It's real simple to install. It's just a bracket. You tighten it down. They come out on a house, come out on a pit, come out on an eave, etc. Web-hosted data. I've had people both say, well, that's good and bad. I really like the OM stuff, and I appreciate that. You know, this system won't be for everybody. What we were trying to do is, especially for the medium and smaller size communities, is to save you from always chasing that brass ring. I came from the SCADA and controls world, and the way that that's set up is, here's your SCADA package, here's your annual contract, here's your upgrades, and you're worried about your computer strength keeping up with the developments. Anybody experienced that before? You know, here's the thing. We tried to set it up so that this would always have the latest and greatest and grow with you. You pay for it once. That's it. It's out there. Yes, sir.
We have a community that still hand-rate everything yet.
Yep.
We have our meters, water meters in the house, and our remote on the outside of the house.
Yes.
So we have to change all of our water meters to connect to that.
Probably not. You might have to change the heads. Now, right now, when you're reading them, how are they coming? The question was, they've got a small community that's still doing self-read, and they'd like to know if they'd have to change out the entire water meters to adapt to a system like this. What would be important is to know what type of water meters you have. We don't have to do that right now. If it's something that's still being made, every one of these manufacturers has a way to turn a smart head onto that, and a lot of them have a way to do that at a lower cost than tying into one of the systems. Does that make sense? I'm just going to use Badger as an example. Badger has an absolute digital encoder. It's the lowest price smart head that they have, but it just takes the signal and takes it into an absolute digital encoded. You put that red in there, 25s, 40s, 70s, whatever, and it sends the signal right out there to go through this. Does that make sense? Each of the manufacturers has something like that. It's like when Census came out with the iPearl, somebody said, well, let's work with that. I thought it was a great question, so we just took it, plugged it in, but since we speak census, it took right off. So, I don't know if I answered your question, but please just visit with us, we'll be happy to answer your questions and try to address that for you. All right, so the idea behind the web-hosted data and the Evergreen software is so you don't have to constantly chase these upgrades. That is not software as a service. This is $5 a month for daily reads. There's no additional charge for that. You own the data. That data is yours. You can download it at any time. It downloads into Excel for comma-separated value. You can export that into any building system. The name of this product is IDT Harmony. It's a satellite field unit. The reason we named it Harmony is because it reads multiple meter manufacturers, and we're constantly adding more manufacturers to the family. Okay, I was approached yesterday for 2 new families that they want to add to this. We have our own research and development team, so that's not real difficult to do. It just takes a little bit of time or cooperation. And we can export to billing systems. We have a billing module that's not included in this if you don't have a billing system, but if you have a billing system, we help you line up the plug and you just send the data out. And Excel or comma separated. Does that make sense? We are not looking to replace your billing program or your meter company. We're a get your meter data to you company. Does that make sense? But you have production and sold data every single day. And I'll show you some of the software. You have the ability to do zone analysis by service area. Each one has some individual trends and daily reads, comparing against the last year or so. Some neat things that it can do. It's not just an AMR system. I had somebody ask me that. It's actually a water management system. You get automatic delivery of daily reads, but you get faster speed of loss detection if you're not already getting it every 6 hours, like you are with the face. You were the only one in the room. So, you minimize your outage schedule maintenance. I had one system tell me, hey, I had water in this area over here. It froze. I knew I was going to have issues. Now they know where. It makes a big difference on how you spend your time and where you go. You ever had a leak before where you had to go digging around to find it? Anybody ever had to do that? Yeah, quite a few hands. You know, because that's the way it works. I'm going to show you an email. Our first full system that went in is Westover, Lyman Jones, out of South Dakota. They have offices in Myrtle and Phillip. They run from the Missouri River to the Black Hills. They're about the size of the state of Maryland. They have 12,000 people and 250,000 cow-calf pair. They're in the Badlands. They have a lot of space. They identified a leak from their office that was a couple hours away, and they knew exactly where to go because they had this in. He wrote an email, and I'll show it to you in just a few minutes. Reports and views by service area and zone. So you can sort by name, you can sort by account number, you can sort top to bottom, you can narrow it down. It's got a search engine as well as a database piece. I'll show that to you. Hopefully I have time to clock. How am I doing? Okay.
You're halfway through.
Halfway through, okay. I didn't hear you cheering. Halfway through, okay. This is a two-way head. Most people don't realize it. You can talk to this, and that's important. Why? I had somebody tell me once, they said, well, if I come in and it tells me I had a leak last night, can I check it again before I go out and look? So if you had a leak last night, would you have a leak again today? I said, well, all depends if the plumber put this, the plug back in and finish filling her spray truck. I said, people do that? He started to laugh. He said, yeah, people do that. We just had a system that we sold to Williams Rural Water out of Williston, North Dakota. And they are putting these in at every water meter depot station up by the oil fields because they're getting water stolen in the middle of the night. And they want this. We had to modify it, but we can do this. We can change the code on this from our office, by the way. We don't have to come. All right? They wanted to wake up every single hour and read in the middle of the night. They could check it anytime they want. So, well, the battery won't last 10 years. And they said, we don't care. They're stealing us blind out there. We need to know who's doing it and when. Okay? I thought that was interesting. A different application. It's a different application. Okay? State of North Dakota Water Commission actually just contacted us. They're going to be testing units up in the northwest part of North Dakota. But frequency changes you can put in here. You can have a sample every 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours. Remotely operated function. I'm going to talk about this briefly. I'm not a big blue sky person, but we built things into this for the future so that people aren't going to get this out there and go, I should have waited 6 months. If you look at the device, you probably can't see it very well from where you are, but if you look at the device, there's a switch in here, and I'll pass this around. I ask that you don't disassemble it, okay? Because it does come apart. There's screws underneath the head comes off, there's a cable, you can disconnect and slide the battery out and replace it. Okay, so it's not a one-time use thing. But there's a switch on here for the power. If you leave the power off, the battery degrades at 0.3% per year. That means in 3 years you've lost less than 1% of battery. Pretty wild, huh?
Yeah.
The folks that make the battery for this make batteries for the U.S. military that last 20 and 30 years. Okay? Underneath that, you'll see there's a black socket and a green socket. The reason I'm pointing these out is that black socket is for another device that we invented. It's a tuner. It allows you to tune it for the best signal. By the way, this will cut through trees. It will actually go through thin plywood. Okay? But you don't want to go through more than 3 trees in a line. Okay? But this will tell you what the signal is. And when you get that strongest signal, so you minimize the drain on the battery, you screw it down, it also gives you the GPS location in case you want to do GIS mapping. Okay? The green plug here's got 6 connectors. 3 are for your meter or your remote, and the other 3 are free, remotely operated function. We built a spot on here that has a low voltage relay opportunity. It costs $20 more. But then you can, from your office using this head, operate that relay. Now, why would you want to do that? You might want to run a flush off. You might want to shut somebody's service off without having to go out there. I got a rise out of a number of people while talking about that, because it's getting dangerous to go out and shut people off. You send 2 people, you're worried about weapons. Having the ability to do that from your office is different than anything else that's being operated out there. Not just the opportunity to talk to it, but to have to do things for you. Does that make sense? Okay. The other thing that we can do is we built into this an RF Bluetooth section. It's already built into this. There's a little plug on here for an adapter board for us to develop for applications. I'm going to give you an example of one of the applications that we're working on, and that's an LP gas reader. That means the water utility could read LP gas and use it as a revenue stream. Does that make sense? To help pay for infrastructure. It's still in development. I'm not telling you it's done. But I'm just letting you know some of the things that we're working on. We also have a wastewater product in the works right now. I won't talk about that today. But what I want you to know is that this is being designed for the future, so it doesn't have to be changed. That applications board inside gives us flexibility to go in a number of different directions. I'm telling you this because you took the time to come here, and I'm telling you what's being worked on so that you guys are at the front edge of the technology development. Is that fair? Is that fair? Okay. All right, and the last thing is what I started with, and that's the water management system. The reason I say water management is because you have that daily data and service area comparisons. So you can actually do service area zone comparisons, taking a parent meter and all the meters below it, making sure that they match, trend them against their past history, and find out where your leak is. Does that make sense? This right here is a screen, and I was kind of advising in showing this. I'm showing you something that's in the process of being released within the next week. This is test data that's on this, and this is actually from the West River Lyman Jones system. This is actually representing test data right here. But this is I'll show you the system live here in just a second. But this right here is a total of the entire system's daily water usage. We only ran a few days worth of data out of it. This was last pulled on the 3rd, that's the new month. So when it got over here, it dropped off. This is live data of use for the total system against what they actually are supplying to each customer. This is what a dashboard looks like. The one I'll show you today doesn't have this in it because it's in the testing platform. I'll be showing you the production platform. We test it solidly first, and then we transfer it over. It just shows up when you log in. Okay? But the rest of this is there. These are the high flow alarms. These are the non-report alerts. This is the database. And again, you've got account number, first name, last name, address, city, state, zip, zone, or service area. This right here shows you that this is the first 5 pages. The blue one's highlighted, so that's the page you're on. There's a previous next and a first last. Right up here it tells you how many units are installed. That's over 2,000 out of the 3,095 they're putting in. Any questions on this? And this is the other one. Oh, I thought there was another one I wanted to show. No. I was going to show you the zone analysis one that's being launched this week as well. If you want to see it, I can arrange for that on a GoToMeeting or send you a copy. Questions so far?
Who owns the satellite?
The satellite's owned by a company called Inmarsat. They are the largest satellite constellation in the world. They started out for 35 years as an international body that was funded by everybody, the major countries of the world, to watch maritime traffic. Sort of like the FAA does for us in the air here. They monitor all the maritime delivery of cargo around the world. They have total world coverage. They're sort of like they're the largest by far. They've got a multi-billion-dollar constellation that wraps around the world. There's different types of satellite technology. I don't know if you're asking that question as well. They became private about 10 years ago. They're based in the UK. They just bought 2 or 3 of their largest partners. They went from a 400-employee company to about 1,900 in the last 6 months. And they are a very large company.
So
yes.
There's some redundancy there. The satellite went out of orbit, died.
There are constant. Yeah, the question was, is there redundancy? Yes. Actually, this unit, you tune it to pick a preferred satellite, but it can read from other satellites. Okay? If you're looking at satellite technology, there's 2 things you need to know. There's 2 types of satellites. You ever seen the ones that you see orbiting the Earth? They call low Earth orbit satellites. To talk to those, and that's what everybody else uses, to talk to those, you have to know when they're coming by, find it, fix your signal, and pull from it and to it. Does that make sense? But there's other options. You can wait for the next one. Then there's also what they call geosynchronous. Those are located all the way around the equator. They have jets on them where they can move them to the left and move them to the right. They've got, in this particular constellation, they've got an Atlantic, a Pacific, and one straight south towards South America. Okay? And so the way this is set up is, and this is probably too technical, but the idea is there's coverage. And when they do their rotation plan, they have, these satellites take years to build. They actually have a schedule of which ones they're going to take down and put back up, how they're going to move them over and slide them, because they have full world coverage. Okay, so if you were to look at them compared to other major corporations, they would be like the McDonald's to the Hardee's, and in and out maybe. Okay, yes?
Are the batteries field replaceable?
Yes. The batteries, he asked if the batteries are field replaceable. When I pass this around, you'll see that there's screws up underneath here. There's actually a seal that goes around here that's tamper-proof. This is actually, you'll be able to turn this and feel how tight that is. But you take the screws out of this, there's a cable connector from this device to the top of the battery. The battery is, there's a kit that comes with it and a little bit of instructions. And basically all it is, it's strapped to the board to hold it in place. If you look inside here, there's an, it holds it firm. This actually pushes up, but it can also drop down, but it's tethered. You drop it off the top, cut the two straps, replace the battery, re-strap it with the kit, drop it back in. Does that answer your question? Okay. Did I answer your question about redundancy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pass it around.
Yeah, I'm going to pass it around. It's 2.5 pounds. It might be a little heavier than you think it would be. Other questions so far? Would you please bring up the site?
head required for every meter?
Yeah, that's a great question. The question is, do you need one of these for every meter? The answer is yes, right now.
How does it tell the difference if you have in one block area 20 different meters? How does it tell the difference between which meters you've got in use?
That's a great question. He's saying, how does this tell the difference between all the different meters? Right now, the go-to-market for this is that the meter is wired to it through this gland in the bottom. So the installation process, I didn't run through that. We actually put barcodes out on this. So you have a sheet printed out for each individual account and house. You peel it off, you put it on there, and you barcode them, and it marries it to the house. And then when it reports back, it goes against the last self-read. If it's more than a certain amount, you say maybe 500 or 1,000 gallons, it throws an alarm so you can decide how far out it is. I didn't really go into that part of it, but right now it's hardwired. That's why it's one per. Okay. Does that make sense? I hope that answered your question. I'm going to show you the website. Where are we doing for time?
15 minutes.
About 15 minutes. Real quickly, I just want to show this to you. I won't spend much time on this. Pull the iPad also in the bag. This right here is IDT's website, idt.us.com. There's a ton of information here. All these buttons across the top talk about their products, solutions, the speaking that they're doing. They've been invited to speak. Actually, they've been invited to speak at National Rural Water this September, and Kansas Rural Water at the end of this month. And happy to be talking about them here as well. So if you want to look any of this out, check it out. I think it'll answer a lot of questions for you, but I'd like to take you live to the site if I can for the last few minutes. Just click on the login. The login is actually tied directly to the site login. The passwords are on there. Let me know you type. Let me type it in really quick. I don't think they've changed it on me. Right over here and see. Please. They changed it. Excuse me just a second. Any final questions from behind me?
How much are they?
That's a great question. No, it's a great
I
question.
knew that was coming.
Well, it should come. I'm surprised they haven't come up yet.
Free.
Yeah, they're free.
You didn't answer quick enough.
No. I will
Buy
answer
one,
quick
get
enough.
10 free.
Yeah.
Do me a favor here. We can look both through IDT and DPC for Stevie. Find his password. Okay. It's got a 10-year battery in it, right? The best way to describe it, it ends up being about $8.65 a month. for 10 years. Okay? If you look at the cost of the unit's $450. It's $5 a month, 10 years. That's $60 a year, 600, right, for 10. It's $1,050 for 10 years, which is $105 a year, which comes out to just a little more than $8.50 a month for daily readings. And infrastructure that's one piece. Does that make sense? Does that answer the question? Okay. Yes, sir.
So like in our home, we got 2 meters in the basement.
Okay.
One for garden and one for regular meters.
Yep.
Would you have to have 2 of them then?
We're working on that right now. That's a great question. I'd like you to contact me after this. He said they've got 2 meters in a house. And we'd like to have both come into this. I've had the Indian Health Service ask us to do this so we can read 24 apartments into one. The capabilities here. We've actually powered this. We've been asking if we do residual pressure, chlorines, chloramines. The answer is yes, we can. Can this be powered? We've already powered it directly from a 110, but you can see the case isn't built for that. We've got a number of different things that we know that this can do. We had to come out with a piece that was asked for in the marketplace. So our first release was to serve the initial comments and questions. Does that make sense? But the answer to your question is stop and see me afterwards, and I'd like to take information. What we do is we actually like to work with communities to resolve the problem. So we want to test the problem maybe with you to show that we can or can't do it. I think it's a lot better than just answering the question straight up. We're just going to work on it together. The reason that West River Lyman Jones bought 3,095 of these is they were the first system to put them out and test them. I remember the day I went to the first board meeting and they had driven into an area where they didn't even have AM radio. Took a four-wheeler down along a ridge in the Badlands. And I was standing at the board meeting when they asked how hard these were to install. And their guy said, they're a piece of cake. As a matter of fact, we installed the one in this area. And they started to laugh because one of the board members said, AM radio, that pipe in sunlight. Okay? It's a tough spot. All right? Their guy had the wires to our guy. Our guy fixed it to the post, tuned it, while they wrote the number of the meter down and the serial number. Stuck in his pocket, got on the four-wheeler, drove out up to the top of the ridge. He wasn't even up 3 to 4 minutes and his phone rang. It was our office 5.5 hours away telling him the serial number of his meter reading. He was impressed. He was impressed. He said, oh, that's cool. But the reason they bought them is we worked with them through that whole process. When they said, you know, we really don't like this, we want this. When we first actually started testing these, we had a meter pit where it was working fine, then it stopped. What the heck? Tried to check the unit, unit seemed to be fine. This is way back at the beginning, okay, a few years ago. And we replaced the unit. The unit was fine, we put it in, same thing. Opened the pit up, and of course it was full of water. It's not all that rare. Okay, when it was full of water, what was happening is, even though the meter's potted, coming the wires through the water, weakened the signal enough that we had to open the window of this for listening for the signal, so it was big enough. We opened it up, we took off, we made it a permanent change. That's why you beta test. And so you don't have those problems in the future. We've never had a problem with that since. And these systems, we told them right up front what we found and how we changed it because of their help. And boy, does that do a lot for confidence. So if we're going to do this right, we need to test it with somebody who's got that issue. And we'd be very open to doing that. And by the way, when we do that kind of testing, that's on our nickel. Because we're trying to develop it to work for you. Does that make sense? Okay. This is what the site looks like. 10 minutes, 8 minutes, what do I got? 5 minutes. Put that shot collar away.
Maybe 6.
All right. I'm going to go quickly here, but as you can see, this is West River Lyman Jones. Here it says Water District Billing Manager. All right, and I can change the profile here to who I want to be, or I'm logged in this way. That'll come up with whoever you are, whatever role you have. Here I can sort by account number, first name, last name, address, city, state, zip, or zone. Okay. It was kind of interesting. West River Lyman Jones really liked the idea of sorting by service areas and zones. They had them by name, but they hadn't really identified them in their database. So now they're going back to do it so they can use this sorting tool. So they don't have a lot of data in the zone right now, but they will. Okay? So if I want to look up, say, Rasmussen Lehman, oh, I should have put this on name. first, sorry. That's a ranch. There's Rasmus and Lehman. I'm going to select one of their taps at this ranch. Okay? All right, this is not the screen I was hoping to show you. This is a billing screen. Oh, I'm in a billing, that's why. Sorry about that. Why am I in the billing?
The other logins are right there next to you.
Say it again.
The other logins are right there on your iPad next to you.
You logged in as a billing person? That's what you did.
Pick the
Okay.
first one in the list.
I'm sorry. They tried to help me out here. They logged me in as a billing person, so it's showing me all the billing data. Here's how you can select who you are. I'll be the water district manager. It's going to ask me to re-log in. Here we go. Back to the dashboard. Oh, this is the test platform. No, that's all right. It still gives you the idea. Okay? I'm out of time anyways. This is the test platform. I prefer to show the live platform. So you get the idea. This is an individual meter. I'm going to go to the previous month so you can see what a month looks like. They're in and out of this area. So I'm maybe not showing you what it's been in very long. They're in the process of installing this. Which one did you what username did you use?
I use the customer.
I should have probably done this and put you in this spot.
Lost your internet.
Yeah, I may have lost my internet. Well, anyhow. Anybody that wants to see this, I'm almost out of time. Anybody that wants to see this, I can do a go-to-meeting. We're going to be putting up a way for people to view this. West River give me access to their site. I don't change any data on it. But it's pretty interesting to walk through. I was really hoping to have a few more minutes to show you. Okay? And I'll be here for a while. I'll step out of the room. I'll see if I can reestablish internet and show people who want to see it. Any final questions for me?